Hello, everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Fourth Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event, Making Waves, Decarbonization through River Energy Innovation. And to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Fourth Space. We are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at Fourth Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities that examine research questions, projects, things happening across the university. We're also running today's event as a live stream Zoom meeting, so those of you joining us there, we would love comments and questions. Just pop those into the chat, and we'll try and read those out during a Q&A. Those of you here in the space, same thing. If you'd like to participate, just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone over to you. Okay, with that, it's very much my pleasure to hand things over to our host for today, also specialist in IP at the Concordia's Voltage Research Program, Olivier Rynne. Olivier, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Douglas. I'm very happy to be back. Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon, Lucile and Alex. So here, welcome to Voltage, where we plug into the future, what's coming beyond. So Voltage, for the viewers at home and in the audience, Voltage is a research program with federal funds to power research in the field of electrification in order to decarbonize society. And we're doing a podcast today, and as the previous episodes as we've done, to tell more to people about what electrifying means. We've made a chart. We'll get back to it a bit later. So today is the fourth episode, as Douglas let us know. The first one was on buildings. Then we had one on grids and the vehicle to grid, where a car can be used as a battery on the grid. The one after was about entrepreneurship and strategy, especially in the field of batteries. And today, we're going to talk about a company, ORPC, with Lucile Moret and Alexandre Paris. So thank you very much for coming. So I touched on electrification. It's not just a single thing. So if we go on this poster that will be on your screens in a second, you'll see that when we think about electrification, we often think about what's immediately next to us. For example, for me, who have worked a lot in the field of batteries, I always thought of electrification as of batteries. But it's much more than that. There are buildings, there's building science and civil engineering, architecture. There is the car and the charging stations that we've talked about in a previous episode. And today, we'll talk about renewable energies and more specifically, how we produce that energy. And today, we're not going to talk about solar energy or wind energy that although very interesting, we've heard a lot about. Now, I want to talk today about hydrokinetic energy, a field that I've discovered a couple of months ago, thanks to Lucile, who's here today. So, Lucile, Alexandre, thank you again for being here. Could you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Lucile Moret. I'm an electrical engineer at ORPC, and I'm in charge of power electronics in the system. I had a background in electrical engineer in France, where I graduated. I spent sometimes in Polytechnique Montreal for my master thesis. And after I worked in solar panel industry. And now it's been like more than 1 year with ORPC. C'était important pour moi de travailler dans l'énergie renouvelable. Le marché solaire était un peu... c'est pas que j'en ai fait le tour, mais c'est un peu plus fermé en ce moment. Et au Québec, tout ce qui était énergie verte et énergie hydraulique, c'était quelque chose qui me parlait beaucoup. Et j'ai aussi beaucoup aimé l'approche d'ORPC qui approche les communautés autochtones et qui a une approche beaucoup plus collaborative que essayer de pousser un produit. Donc j'ai postulé pour rentrer à ORPC.
Et je pense que c'est vraiment la partie qui m'avait le plus enthousiasmé quand tu avais fait la présentation de pas juste une compagnie là, qui va vendre des annonces sur YouTube, là, mais c'est une compagnie qui peut faire une différence et qui fait une différence, mais on va en parler. Et Alexandre?
Thanks. Alexandre Paris, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ORPC. I've been with the company for about 6 years. I'm a mechanical engineer, but I've worked more in business development and technology transfer. So prior to ORPC, I was with Hydro-Québec doing strategic partnerships and commercialization of innovation. I had a similar role with the National Research Council as well. And in between, I've been working with young startups and very large multinationals, always in the environment of high tech. So if you want me, I can speak a bit about ORPC.
Yeah, please. I heard you had a presentation lined up for us.
I have a few slides that will help probably to explain what we do. So ORPC stands for Ocean Renewable Power Company. And what we do, as we can see on the screen, is we're developing projects using a hydrokinetic system. So hydrokinetic system, you can see a few examples of the device that we have developed. So the idea is to harness the energy from moving water, whether it's in a river or in a tidal environment, by having a turbine placed underwater. So we can generate electricity using a generator. So here on the picture, you can see our turbine, a cross-flow turbine that powers a generator. We have a subsea cable that will bring the power back to shore, and that's how we generate the electricity. So different kind of systems, different deployments. So in this case, our turbine is mounted on pontoon. That's how we've developed our system for remote communities where they don't have often all the means we have down here with cranes and barges. So it's a self-deployable system. We bring the pontoon at the location where we want to deploy it. We drop the anchor, then we fill the pontoon with water, and we sink the system underwater. Once it's underwater, the turbine will start to rotate and start to generate electricity. ORPC, we're about 50 employees. We have teams in the US, in Canada. We have teams in Chile and in Anchorage and in Ireland. We've been developing projects in Iquiague, Alaska, in Chile Chico in Chile, and recently in Manitoba. And now I guess what we're going to be talking about more is the remote communities up north of Canada, where we are starting to develop projects in Yukon and Northwest Territories.
Awesome, thank you. So how did the ORPC venture started? On what basis?
So going back 20 years ago, our founders, there were 3 founders with ORPC, had the idea to harness the energy from marine current. So the Gulf Stream up the coast of Florida. So they started to develop a technology there, then realized that being so far away from shore was quite a challenge, very powerful currents as well. So they decided to focus on tidal, mainly working in Eastport in Maine. And then realized that up north in Canada and Alaska, there's a big need for renewable energy from rivers. So adapted the system to work in rivers. And for the last 15 years, that's what we've been developing. And realizing our first project in Iquiague, Alaska, 6 years ago, where we have 2 systems running ever since.
Interesting. And Lucile, maybe you can touch on the commitment of ORPC to address local energy needs and challenges in communities, areas that are maybe further away from urban centers.
Yeah. Well, in Iquiague, the electricity comes from diesel generators. And they have to... ils doivent amener le diesel sur place. Donc ça passe par des avions. En fait, un avion maintenant. qui dessert plusieurs villages, donc ils sont vraiment très liés à cet apport de diesel. Et la turbine leur permet d'avoir une production locale ils sont plus autonomes en production d'énergie, une énergie verte. Et
dans le Grand Nord, juste au Canada, il y a à peu près 300 de ces communautés qui sont alimentées par le diesel, donc qui ne sont pas reliées au grid. Et comme disait Lucile, le diesel est amené soit par des routes de glace, qui évidemment avec les changements climatiques deviennent de plus en plus problématiques. Sur la route de glace qui va déliner, par exemple, il y a un camion qui est passé à travers la glace, donc il y a des problèmes de contamination d'eau, évidemment. Ou par hélicoptère, ou par avion. IGAG, ils utilisent un DC-4, un vieux DC-4, pour emmener le diesel. Donc évidemment, s'il y a un pépin, l'avion s'écrase, comme c'est arrivé en Alaska l'année dernière, mais c'est un déversement de ce diesel dans les rivières avec tous les enjeux environnementaux que ça entraîne.
C'est catastrophique. Et donc, une fois que ces hydroliennes sont mises en place, quelle part de leurs besoins en énergie sont couverts? Est-ce qu'ils arrivent à ne plus avoir besoin, de ne plus être dépendants du tout du diesel ou...
Il y a aussi un partenariat IGAG avec Schneider et qui ont un système de batterie. Donc avec le système de batterie, on arrive à ne plus avoir besoin de générateurs de diesel. Mais si la batterie n'est pas opérationnelle, s'il n'y a pas de batterie, on doit produire un peu, on doit quand même avoir besoin des générateurs et on compense un peu. On produit à peu près, je pense, c'est 30% de ce que le générateur doit fournir au village. Okay. La charge du village, elle change beaucoup dépendamment des besoins du village. Donc en été, en hiver, c'est pas la même chose. Donc on s'adapte en fonction de ce que le générateur fournit.
And is that reduction in diesel dependence only for houses, or only also, for example, for hospitals or for cultures growing like hydroponic or agriculture?
So in those remote communities, energy is pretty scarce, right? So they live with whatever diesel engines have been installed, and part of the community, sometimes they're 20 to 30 years old, so there's reliability issues. The first thing when we talk with the community is to understand what their needs are. So is it because of grid reliability? Is that the issue that they want to address? Is it for, like you hinted, economic potential? Igiagig, for example, it's they fish salmon. That's their survival means over there, and it's a commercial fishing. What they have to do is export all that fish. Having more energy in the community will allow them to diversify, transform the fish, and create some wealth within the community. So for community, that's a need. For other communities, yes, to have a new hospital or a community center to be developed in the community, and they don't have energy to do it, so we can go behind the meter and just power that facility. So every community has a different reason. Even some communities that are grid connected are looking for energy sovereignty. So that's another area where having a local source of energy. But it also always goes back to the community and the community members and what do they want to do. And what we provide is only a solution to meet what their needs are. And sometimes the solution is through harnessing energy from the river. Sometimes it's a combination of both. So like Lucile was saying, we can add energy storage to allow for better, more efficient use of the diesel generators, or to be able to incorporate more energy sources like solar or wind. So if the need is for a more reliable grid, then you want a diversity of source that will build your reliability.
Have you happened to go to communities that you've served after hydrogen had been implemented, and to see the difference if ORPC is 20 years old? Can you share stories of how communities changed with that less reliance on diesel fuel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like as I mentioned, our pilot project in Igiagig, Alaska has been running for 5 years. So we go back to the community frequently. In what we do is we very early in the project with the community, we try to build capacity in the community. So a lot of the maintenance and the operations are handled by the community members. That's why during COVID, Igiagig was able to continue to use and maintain the devices because they had the knowledge to do so. So I'll tell a story that was told by Alexandre. Alexandre is the president of the Igiagig Village Council. She told us a story that one day she went in the bathroom and her kids were playing in the bathtub and splashing water everywhere, and the water was going above the bathtub, and she was saying, "What are you doing?" And said, "Well, we're playing RivGen." And RivGen is our device, so they were making the movement of the falls, creating energy and splashing water. So for us, that's kind of reward where, people expect the electricity to be on. You flick the switch, you want the bulb light to come on, or press the microwave, or whatever you do. So when we do energy projects, yes, that's the output. And for the community, it doesn't change too much. You don't see the difference in electrons or anything. But when you hear stories like that, where you see people have embraced the project and make the project their own, even down to the kids, that's what's most rewarding for us, for sure.
Yeah, you're changing entire generations by
Inspiring
giving them.
Yeah.
And I've heard sometimes that communities would embrace renewable energies, but not so much the storage part. Is that something you've also encountered with ORPC? That, for example, Schneider has a lot of difficulties to propose having batteries there.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I was at a conference organized by Voltage, and Dr. Ursula was talking about the project in Gold Bay, the solar project, where there's unfortunately a few issues with that great project, which was able to turn off diesel for a few hours at a time entirely. And part of the project is a battery, and at this stage of development, it introduces some challenges in the complexity of the system. You need a microgrid controller that is able to do the switching from back and forth. And that sometimes those technology challenges, especially when you're a remote community, where when we go to a community in Northwest Territories, like it's a day or two of travel, right? So you cannot be as responsive and go and fix problems. And so there are some challenges on the technology side that is slowing down a bit the introduction of technology like energy systems. But the battery itself is an integral part of what the microgrid is. It's what allows us, for example, to run the diesel more efficiently. So we always want to have the diesel as a cold reserve to operate just in case. But whenever they come on, you cannot run them at 20% of their performance. You have to run them at least 80%, so you get proper diesel consumption. And that's what the battery allows on those microgrids. So the battery has to be a part, but yeah, there's still some technical challenge. But thanks to the work of living labs like we have in Gold Bay, like we have in Igiagig, we're able to learn. Dr. Ursula, she's making simulation and models so we better understand. And then by being able to have academic groups like Voltage, to share all the knowledge, that's how we can progress faster for those communities.
So you're talking about being reactive to maybe when things break down, but you also mentioned that the community is managing the device there. Do you happen to give them training and so they can be independent even in the right to repair kind of aspect? Lucile, do you sometimes speak with people in these communities to help them repair them remotely?
Not me directly, but I know that they have some bandwidth of repair they can make, but not all of it.
Qu'est-ce qui les arrêterait?
Il y a des procédures qui peuvent être dangereuses en termes de tension et je pense que ça s'arrête à peu près là.
L'apport des communautés dans les projets est évidemment crucial. Il faut que le projet commence de la communauté, il faut qu'il soit développé par la communauté. Dépendamment de la communauté, des skills, des habiletés qui sont déjà présentes, on peut les impliquer à différents niveaux. La communauté d'IAGRI, par exemple, a été très impliquée dans le même concept de notre système. C'est avec eux qu'on est venu à des idées de et si on mettait la turbine sur un ponton, etc. Donc, nous, dans nos approches avec les communautés, c'est important d'écouter. On parle du indigenous knowledge in the community. C'est quand on fait nos évaluations de sites, caractérisation de sites. Oui, on peut avoir des instruments complexes, ice profluometer, des ADCP, etc., qui nous permettent d'aller prendre des données sur le terrain. Mais souvent, la connaissance de ces communautés qui sont là depuis des générations sur le terrain a beaucoup plus de valeur. Donc, à ce niveau-là, c'est sûr qu'ils vont être intégrés dès le début de projet. Ils vont participer à la conception du projet. C'est ça qui va faire que la réussite du projet. Après, quand on arrive, comme décrivait Lucile, avec des aspects, on va dire, plus techniques, plus pointus, ça va dépendre des individus qui sont déjà présents dans la communauté, de la formation qu'on peut leur donner. Donc, souvent, il faut faire de la formation. Puis c'est là qu'il y a des regroupements comme ICE, Indigenous Clean Energy, avec qui Voltage participe aussi. Donc, eux, depuis des années, organisent un programme qui s'appelle Catalyst 2020, qui permet de prendre des jeunes dans les communautés, de les exposer à différentes utilités, à différentes technologies, pour développer leur intérêt, puis éventuellement que ces gens développent de l'intérêt à continuer à étudier, à apprendre, etc. Nous, on joue notre rôle dans un projet, mais il y a aussi tout ce que les universités, les cégeps, etc. peuvent amener comme formation dans ces communautés.
Oui, c'est fascinant. Ouais, mince, j'ai une question. Je vais revenir à mes notes. Est-ce que concrètement, j'entends qu'il y a moins de dépendance sur les... il y a moins de dépendance sur le diesel. Quelles sont les différences concrètes que vous auriez pu observer de communautés avant et après l'implantation des hydroliennes? Est-ce que, par exemple, la population augmente? Est-ce que l'activité, par exemple, économique augmente? Ou est-ce que, par exemple, les problèmes respiratoires diminuent?
Ouais. Je peux répondre à cela. Évidemment, ORPC, ça fait 20 ans qu'on développe notre technologie d'hydrolienne. Ça fait seulement 5 ans qu'on a développé un projet. Donc, le laps de temps est un peu court pour observer des changements, par exemple, sur la santé des gens, etc. What I can tell, though, is when you go to a village that is powered by diesel, you can smell it. And you can hear the constant noise of the diesel generator. It's like having trucks that run 24 hours a day. And when you go into a community that is operating renewable energy, whether it's hydrokinetic or solar or wind, and they have the ability to shut down the diesel, you notice the difference, like just not having the sound. And it's great because those communities are far from cities. They're in nice environments, and then where you think you're going to experience nature, and that's how people were used to live. They rely on those senses for hunting and other activities, and so you have this constant humming. So there are signs that we can definitely perceive. The other ones you can imagine that if you don't have the fumes and so on, you'll have less people working on the diesel engines and so on. You'll have less challenges health-wise.
Less cancers.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. But it's a bit too early to have studies done and to be able to comment on that. But I think it makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but I wouldn't. I'm surprised to hear that. Yeah, you can hear and smell the diesel generator like 24/7. Must get on people's nerves. Once they know, they can shut it down.
Yes.
And when you power it back up, it's like, oh no, it's there
back.
again. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So my question was maybe more to Lucile. From what I've understood, indigenous communities care for nature. They were like acting global conservation of nature before it was even a thing for Westerners. And in that sense, we could think that a huge device like that in the river would like impede a lot, for example, fish migration. So how do these devices
Siri's going to answer for us.
Yeah, Siri's always there. How do these devices cohabit with the local wildlife, and are they designed in a specific way to marry that perfectly?
Yeah. Well, in Igiagig, the region is in a big salmon river, and it's really important for the village that the fish are not harmed. Well, the fish swims really not in the middle of the river, but on the sides, and the river is in the middle. Whereas the water flow is really high, it's less turbulent. There's less speed on the side, so it allows the fish to swim. The river also it's pretty like it's 1 meter
Shallow.
radius, but it's really shallow, and it's the rotational speed drive is low. It's not like a generator, diesel generator that we can picture. It's really slower, and we have like 2 cameras, I think, on the river that's monitoring the wildlife, and there is a US organism that collects data and are still monitoring the fish, so we do not harm the fish.
And how about ice? I can see ice on when the rivers freeze. Does the river still work?
Yeah, it does. It's below the water. It's below the freezing. Maybe you have more.
The layer of ice.
Yeah, maybe you have more experience with that.
Yeah. So typically, we deploy our system in fast-moving water. So the water shouldn't freeze.
Okay.
It should move fast enough. So and that's one way of selecting a right spot to deploy it is if the community tells us, well, in this area of the river, the ice won't take, we know it's a good environment for us. But with climate change, weird thing happens. In Igiagig, for example, you're seeing on the picture, ice starts to build on the river, and at one point, it's going to cover the entire river nowadays. But there's still water flowing underneath the ice. So the RivGen can continue to operate. RivGen, that's how we call our system. I use that name. So the hydrokinetic turbine will continue to operate. Understanding ice movement and the thickness of ice, obviously that's key into doing projects in the Great North. So that's why we're starting a project in Fort Providence on the Mackenzie River with the Bear Service Center. To study the ice. So the Mackenzie River is a very powerful river, and it's known for this ice out event where a big chunk of ice comes and they just destroy everything on the riverbank. But the center of the river is a bit deeper, so we think it's going to be okay. But we're deploying this summer equipment to go throughout the winter and then study how the ice moves, how thick the ice is going to be formed, and how fast the water is going to continue to flow underneath the ice coverage.
Ok, intéressant. Et on parlait de souveraineté énergétique. d'un point de vue de Montréal, on dit que ces communautés sont loin, mais en gros, elles sont juste loin de nous. Est-ce que des communautés sont finalement quand même assez proches les unes des autres, ou certaines pourraient produire de l'énergie pour d'autres communautés, ou elles sont quand même, il y a quand même une assez grande distance qui va les séparer?
Tu veux répondre sur la construction de lignes électriques?
À mon avis, c'est quand même des longues. Enfin, c'est pas quelque chose que j'ai étudié là, mais je pense que c'est quand même des longues distances. Je sais qu'en Alaska, je sais pas pour celle au Québec ou dans le nord du Canada, mais en Alaska, à côté des Gagig, justement, c'est plein de petits villages un peu éparpillés et qui sont reliés par avion seulement. Donc je pense que construire des lignes ça ferait beaucoup de pertes. Beaucoup de pertes, peut-être que ça détruirait un peu le territoire aussi, là, construire des lignes. Et donc c'est pas quelque chose que j'envisage.
Il y a des projets qui sont à l'étude pour connecter des communautés dans le nord de l'Ontario ou au territoire du Nord-Ouest à partir du Manitoba. Construire des longues lignes de transport. C'est des projets de milliards de dollars. Donc, pour aller alimenter une communauté d'une centaine d'individus, le coût par habitant est difficile à ajuster. Le return on investment est très long. Et en plus, ce seraient des lignes qui traversent des territoires inoccupés avec des environnements assez difficiles. Donc, même pour la fiabilité de ces lignes, ça peut poser un challenge quand il y a de la glace qui se forme, etc.
Okay. Et est-ce que vous savez ce qu'en pensent les communautés? Est-ce que c'est par exemple un compromis qu'ils sont capables d'accepter, ou est-ce que de toute façon ils ne sont pas intéressés effectivement d'avoir des lignes qui viendraient défigurer le paysage?
Oui, l'acceptabilité sociale, comme on dit, peut être difficile avec des lignes. Souvent, c'est pas forcément une question d'acceptabilité sociale, c'est d'appropriation de la communauté du projet. C'est que ces projets avec des grandes lignes de transmission sont pensés et créés par les utilités du Sud. Donc, dans leur environnement, c'est la manière de servir ces communautés.
Ouais,
c'est plus ça que les communautés ont de la difficulté à accepter, avec raison, c'est qu'elles ne font pas partie du développement de la solution. Elles se font imposer un peu un modèle que nous, on a développé pour le Sud, amener des sources de production vers chez nous, et on essaie de leur imposer la même chose. Quand on parle avec les communautés qui sont traditionnellement beaucoup plus en contact avec la nature, donc les forces de la nature, que ce soit le vent, le solaire, l'eau, leur tendance, ça serait d'utiliser les ressources qu'ils ont disponibles localement pour être capables de suffire à leurs besoins. C'est comme ça qu'ils ont vécu depuis des générations. Mais ils veulent évidemment le faire dans un cadre qui est respectueux et durable pour leur environnement. Donc, c'est là que produire localement avec des groupes diesel, ça ne correspond pas à ce qu'ils recherchent.
Ouais, c'est comme on me l'a rappelé encore ce matin que pour les communautés autochtones, c'est pas à propos d'eux sans eux. Ils doivent diriger ce genre de travaux, effectivement, que ce soit les utilités du Sud qui doivent décider pour eux, ça ne marche pas.
Exact, tout à fait.
Il y a une déconnexion.
À Gagig, tous les câbles sont enfouis. Il n'y a pas de poteau.
Okay.
Ouais. Puis c'est ça, le coût de faire un projet. Donc, en fait, si on regarde juste un petit fait, fun fact, comme diraient mes garçons, quand on regarde une carte, le nord est aplati. Oui. Donc, ça nous donne une idée que tout est proche. Mais en fait, quand on se déplace puis qu'on va à Coudjouac, c'est aussi loin que d'aller en Europe. Donc, les distances, si on le regarde avec une carte qui montre le cercle arctique, les distances sont vraiment grandes. Donc, les communautés sont à des milliers de kilomètres les unes des autres. Fait construire une ligne entre une communauté et une autre, au niveau du coût, ça ne serait pas faisable. En plus, c'est dans du pergisol, donc il y a des challenges technologiques en plus à pouvoir construire ces lignes. Donc, c'est juste pas envisageable.
Encore une fois, deuxième fois que j'oublie la question. Oui, on parlait de coûts. Qui paye? Parce que finalement, ces communautés sont quand même maintenues dans un état de pauvreté à cause du gouvernement canadien. Qui paye pour ces installations qui doivent être quand même assez coûteuses, je pense?
Pour comme des installations.
Ouais, je parle vraiment là, je reviens comme ReefGen, TideGen.
Il y a il y a des programmes par NRCan, par exemple, qui mettent en place des subventions pour aider au développement de ces projets. C'est une manière aussi pour le gouvernement de s'assurer que les projets vont être dirigés par les communautés autochtones. Donc, le financement est plus élevé quand c'est une communauté autochtone qui lead le projet, qui développe le projet. Donc, nous, c'est notre méthode préférée pour faire ce genre de projet. Donc, c'est sûr que les coûts de construction dans le Nord sont très élevés, transporter le matériel, etc. Donc, ça prend une aide gouvernementale pour lancer ces projets. Maintenant, au niveau des richesses dans les communautés, c'est très inégal à travers le Canada. Il y a des communautés sur lesquelles il y a peut-être des minières ou il y a peut-être des barrages électriques, donc ils reçoivent des redevances, donc qui ont plus facilement accès à du capital pour développer ce projet. Donc on peut parler, par exemple, au nord du Québec, le Nunavik, qui est très bien organisé autour de la FCNQ puis de Makivik, qui, eux, ont créé une joint venture, Tarcuti, qui Tarcuti est l'entité qui est dirigée et propriété des Inuits, qui développe les projets d'énergie renouvelable dans le Nord pour toutes les communautés. Donc, certaines communautés sont bien organisées ou mieux organisées, d'autres sont un peu plus indépendantes ou ont été plus isolées. Donc, là, c'est là qu'on a besoin de l'aide du gouvernement comme NRCan pour favoriser des projets chez eux.
So it's quite apparent from your point of view, Alex, that your day-to-day life is with the point of view, serving the point of view of these communities. How about you, Lucile? How does it change your day-to-day work compared to, for example, when you were working in the solar panel industry?
Well, it's a bit more challenging because in the solar panel industry, we were looking for like a market in Canada where, like Quebec, Manitoba, and things like that, where the grid is strong. It's Hydro-Quebec, and in small villages, we have different technical difficulties with the grid, il est moins robuste, il y a moins de si cette source de redondance en quelque sorte, comme il pourrait y avoir avec Hydro-Québec. Donc une panne, ça a un gros impact en fait. Si on a une panne à gigagig, tout le village a un blackout, donc on ne veut pas non plus causer de problèmes et de dérangements dans le village. Je dirais aussi de ce qu'on a pu constater, c'est les limites de tension hautes et basses et en fréquence aussi sur un grid comme à Hydro-Québec par exemple, est beaucoup plus contraint que dans les autres. Donc on doit un peu adapter aussi les appareils qu'on amène là-bas. Donc on a quelques petites, on a des différences et aussi, des différences qu'on ne peut pas forcément non plus tester au Québec parce que la qualité du réseau est trop bien.
Ok. Et donc dans ce que tu décris, finalement, il y a toujours et Hydro-Québec est quand même un peu dans le décor, mais ils ont une source supplémentaire d'énergie qui vient de l'hydrolienne.
Ouais, en fait, je voulais surtout mettre l'emphase sur le fait que dans les villages, le réseau est beaucoup plus est moins fort qu'à Hydro-Québec.
Okay.
Donc,
Okay.
on a des soucis qu'on n'aurait pas en se branchant à Hydro-Québec.
Ok, je comprends. En revenant un peu sur le côté technique, je me rappelle quand tu avais fait la présentation, tu expliquais un petit peu comment est-ce que l'hydrolienne était déployée. Est-ce que tu peux nous walk us through entre le moment où ça quitte l'entrepôt et qu'on flippe le switch et qu'on a du courant qui vient de l'hydrolienne?
Ouais. Yeah, so basically the project. So the project will start first by understanding the resource. So the advantage of hydrokinetic, though, is compared to wind or solar, who are intermittent sources. River is what we call the base load, so it will produce energy all year round, and it's very predictable. So we have years and years of data about flow of the river, Basically what we need to do is go at a specific date, measure what the velocity is, because really for us it's not the flow, it's the water velocity that is important. But once we have a few measurements, then we can extrapolate and predict production throughout the year for many years to come. If it's a tidal environment, then we need one lunar cycle to be able to measure the entire velocity created by the tide. And then again, tides are super predictable, so we can extrapolate through models to understand generation for years to come. So it's not a big phase, but it's a first step. So at the same time, we start the permitting and authorization process, and that's probably for engineers, that's the aspect that's a bit more obscure and challenging and difficult, because it's a very long process. There's environmental monitoring that needs to be done. There's discussions with several regulatory agencies, from Transport Canada to DFO, to La Régie de l'Énergie, and so on, to really build the case and get all the authorization and permits to be obtained, so a device can be deployed safely in the water and then start generating energy. So that's all the...
Sorry, you say very long. Ballpark, how long? Like 3 months, 6 months?
It will, you can count easily a year for all that.
Okay.
It will depend from province to province. Quebec is certainly one of the most stringent province with environmental monitoring that is required and so on. In the US, you have the FERC, which is the federal agency that regulates, and they too have a very challenging process. What we do with them is we work in what we call the adaptive management approach. So the idea there is to go step by step together, all the agencies in the same room, and review the data as we're collecting to see what's the next step. So that allows us, for example, in IGAGIC, to bring the device, put it on the water and observe what's happening. If everyone is okay, then we bring the device under the water, and again, we observe. We don't make any electricity. We see how the fish interact with the device. Once everyone is happy, then we start operating. We don't operate during migration, see what happens. And so we build confidence, slowly and get around all the requirements to satisfy all the agencies. So that's all the pre-project that is happening. Again, very important that the community is involved. IGAGIC was the first indigenous community to obtain such permit in the US, so very noticeable achievement. And then in the factory, we start assembling, building the device. So there's an engineering phase where the engineers goes on site. They decide the type of anchoring system that can be used, the mooring system, where the subsea cable will be installed, where we're going to put the shore station. Electrical engineers will be responsible for the interconnection studies with the local grid or the utility, get all the proper approvals there as well so we can connect. The device then is being built. Our last device have been built in Quebec. So it was a choice to leverage the great supply chain that we have in Quebec. We'll see with the tariffs where that is going to go. So we're
didn't want to talk about that.
living in a bit of uncertainty. But for now, our preferred route is to manufacture those devices in Quebec and then ship them to the location. So they go by trucks, by barges, by boats to the final location. The device is being reassembled on the beach. So it's been designed so it can be reassembled without having like a perfect concrete floor surface. It's self-aligning, so using loaders if we don't have cranes. So very simple to put things back together. We push it with loaders into the water. We have a small tugboat or two fishing boats that drives the device to where we want to operate it, drop the anchor, connect the cable, sync the device, and then we're ready to operate. So in 2 minutes, that's the life of a project.
And how long does it take in real life?
The first one took years to work with the community, design our system, and so on to achieve. Now we think that within a year we should be able to deploy a system.
Cool.
So and then of course there's a window. I mean, if we're working up north, winter is very long, so the window at which we can deploy a system is very short. So we don't have to miss it, because if we miss it, then it's another year that gets added to the calendar.
Gotcha. I have a question coming from a very uneducated person, myself. I'll try to phrase it properly. You said it takes 1 year or so, especially in Quebec, it's longer to get permits and authorization for wildlife, etc. But from what I've gathered, these devices are put to serve indigenous communities that are not really covered by or protected by the government. So the way I'll frame the question is, are these permits and authorization phases something welcomed by the communities, or also seen as a hurdle, like why is it taking that much longer to get our energy sovereignty?
Yeah, so it's going to be different from one community to another, depending on the nation they're part of. I think from the point of view of the First Nation community, what's important is that the environment is respected. So they see the probably provincial or federal agencies as bodies who have been created to enforce certain rules. They see themselves as having stewardship over the land and over the water. So they have their own institution that will supervise the process. So when we work with Ganawake community, for example, they have the CEPO, Ganawake Environment Protection Office, that oversees the process, have their own marine biologists, and they do their own studies.
That makes sense.
Oh, exactly. So we work with them, and we work with the provincial agencies at the same time.
Okay, well, that's how it is. But still, is that process welcome to go through the provincial or federal government bodies, or are they trusted bodies?
Yeah, I cannot speak for obviously all the First Nation, and I won't speak on their behalf either. But our experience so far is that there's a good relationship between DFO and Transport Canada and the other agencies and the communities.
Thank you.
I haven't seen any issues.
Awesome.
There.
Thank you very much. We're nearing the end, but I want to talk to you about a topic that is dear to me, so intellectual property. How do you do intellectual property at ORPC? And if yes, how do you go about it? Maybe more on the technical front.
Well, we can start with what if you make an invention.
When
we. I think you have way more experience than me in that.
Okay, well, so it turns out that at the National Research Council, that was part of my job to manage the IP portfolio for NRC, and also to draft license agreements on how to commercialize those IP. So yeah, it's a topic that I'm a bit familiar with. So within ORPC, Lucile and other engineers, they have a lab book, right? So that's their Bible. So whenever they do some work and they think that they're recording results, or that's what they use to, and they're traceable, they're labeled, and so on. And they work in, that's our record for any kind of invention that might be done. So we have an IP committee within ORPC. So if a group of engineers think that they have created some intellectual property, they bring it forward to the committee, we review it, and then we decide if it's something that we want to protect or something we want to disclose. So you know IP, intellectual property very well. Patents are very expensive. It's a long process. It requires a lot of their time as well to write and defend. So it's not always, the best solution to apply for a patent. So And we do have a good portfolio of patents, so we're well protected. At this stage of growth in our company, we're a bit more selective. Very often startups, they need the IP to raise capitals and attract investors, so it's not our case anymore. We really do IP protection to protect
But is it actively part of, Lucile, for example, do you read patents in your field to know exactly what can be patented to have that edge and to be innovative? Or is it more of, oh, okay, I worked on that, it is innovative, oh, there are no patents, we should patent it. Well, how is it?
Alors, je suis vraiment pas trop éduquée sur les patents et tout. Je devrais avoir un peu plus d'éducation, mais moi, au jour le jour, je travaille techniquement sur des choses qui me font plus triper pour faire des simulations, un modèle de notre système, le rendre plus efficace, le rendre plus fiable. C'est des choses qui m'animent, mais j'ai pas cette vision propriété intellectuelle. Puis, est-ce que
Par expérience, travailler avec des scientifiques, souvent, c'est que des personnes comme Lucile sont tellement immergées dans leur domaine et sont tellement connaissantes dans leur domaine que des fois, ils ne vont pas détecter que quelque chose qu'ils ont créé est innovant, est différent et pourrait et devrait être protégé. Donc c'est le rôle un peu des autres personnes dans la compagnie d'être là un peu, de dire ouais, mais quand tu fais cette présentation, cet aspect, moi, ça vient me chercher, puis il y a peut-être quelque chose là. Puis souvent la réaction c'est mais non, c'est facile, c'est facile pour elle, mais ça ne veut pas dire que c'est pas quelque chose qui peut avoir de la valeur pour une compagnie qui devrait être protégée.
Ok, merci. Donc, avant de laisser la place à l'audience pour poser des questions, qu'est-ce que vous diriez respectivement seraient les défis à relever à court, moyen terme pour ORPC? Quelles sont les prochaines étapes pour vous?
Je vais répondre d'un point de vue technique, au niveau d'électronique de puissance.
Oui. Moi, mon point de vue, ce serait d'avoir un système électrique qui soit fait sur mesure pour les turbines. Parce que pour l'instant, on fait de l'intégration, puis ça fonctionne bien, mais on pourrait avoir un système qui est, à mon avis, plus efficace et beaucoup moins coûteux, et donc qui serait plus accessible, avec quelque chose qui soit fait sur mesure.
Ok.
Il y a plein de défis, puis c'est pour ça qu'on est toujours chez ORPC, parce que c'est un bon challenge. Je vais en prendre un, donc une technologie qui est émergente, qui a été développée depuis plusieurs années, mais qui est pas encore reconnue d'une manière automatique, on va dire, dans le mix énergétique. On entend toujours parler solaire, éolien. Puis les hydroliennes, on n'en parle pas trop. Donc ça, c'est notre challenge, c'est de faire reconnaître que dans un mix énergétique, il y a une source qui vient de l'eau. Il n'y a pas juste le soleil, le vent, mais il y a aussi l'eau. Et une chose que j'ai peut-être pas mentionnée, mais c'est que les hydroliennes, quand on fait des projets d'hydroliennes, en fait, il n'y a aucune infrastructure, on ne touche pas la rivière, il n'y a pas de barrage, on ne crée pas de réservoir. Donc c'est une manière très respectueuse de l'environnement d'aller chercher de l'énergie dans l'eau. Et c'est comme ça qu'on se différencie de la micro-hydro ou des barrages au fil de l'eau, etc. Donc un challenge, c'est de faire mieux connaître cette technologie et cet aspect. Quand on parle de ça aux communautés, leur réaction c'est « I always knew there was a way to make energy from that river. Now I'm glad that I know how. » Donc, c'est beaucoup d'éducation, puis il y a une partie de l'équipe qui n'est pas ici aujourd'hui qui travaille là-dessus avec ICE, encore une fois. On participe au programme Catalyst 2020, on éduque les gens, on transmet nos connaissances, puis on les intéresse. Puis où c'est intéressant pour nous, parce qu'au Québec, ça fait depuis 2015 qu'on fait ça, c'est que là, on commence à voir finalement que les gens nous approchent. Fait qu'au lieu de faire du technology push, d'aller dire aux gens, on peut faire un projet chez vous. Juste en fin d'année dernière, il y a eu 5 communautés autochtones qui nous ont approchés dans le cadre d'un appel à projet du CNRC, de NRCan, en disant, on aimerait ça répondre à cet appel à projet en utilisant votre technologie pour faire un projet chez nous. Donc ça montre que oui, il y a toujours un défi à vulgariser, à faire mieux connaître la technologie, mais ça commence à résonner. Donc c'est
fantastique, super. Ouais, écoutez, je pense qu'on arrive à la fin de notre épisode. Je me tourne vers l'audience, dans la salle ou en ligne. Si vous avez des questions. Ah oui, je pense qu'on va vous passer un micro.
What is the difference between this device, this generator that you've created in a run-of-river generating station? Like there's one in Repentigny, which is a run-of-river generating station. That's my first question. And have any thought of installing one of these in the Lachine Rapids? There's already the foundations of an old generating station there. So you could easily install a generator probably several in the Lachine Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't work, you can remove it.
So the first question, I think, is what's the difference between run-of-river and hydrokinetic system? So the major difference is we don't channel the water through a tube or a pipeline to focus the energy on the turbine. We just go into a river, we don't do anything to the riverbed, and we just deploy our system. If there's any maintenance or if we need to remove it, we just fill the pontoon back with air and bring the system back to the surface. So it's a way of doing renewable energy using water with a very high respect of the environment by not changing anything. Your second question is very interesting about the Rapides Lachine. So we didn't get to talk about that, but we've started a project actually l'île Sainte-Hélène. So it's a partnership with Parc Jean Drapeau and Hydro-Québec, where we're going to deploy next summer 2 systems in the Chenal Le Moine. So, and the idea there is to bring local renewable energy production in very fast-moving water, because at that segment of the St. Lawrence River, there's a restriction and the current picks up quite a bit. To decarbonate the installation of Parc Jean Drapeau. So you have some of the buildings that are being powered by natural gas for heating, so that could be replaced with electricity and help make their operation a bit greener. Par le Lachine near Pont-Mercier are a bit further upstream. That's another very good site. And we are in discussion with the Mohawk Council of Ganawake about starting a project there. We recently got support from the Grand Chief Cody Diabo, who wants to work with ORPC and other stakeholders to look if we could develop a project with them. There are things we need to better understand about the river, the American eel, for example, the esturgeon, so that there's a few species of fish that we need to study with KEPO and understand where their reproducing grounds are and so on before we can start thinking about doing a project. But yeah, that's something that we started with the Ganawake community, and then hopefully we'll see being developed over the next few years.
I think we have one last question.
Thank you for the talk. I was wondering, how do you compare the costs of the turbine electricity production with a generator? How many times it is 2-3 times the costs? And how these contracts awarded? Is it supply installation or just supply of the hydro turbine?
Yeah, so the cost of the device itself is one thing. Then you have the project cost, and it all transfer into what we call the leverage cost of energy, LCOE, which is a measure that allows to compare wind production with solar production with hydrokinetic production. We've developed our systems and designed it to be competitive with diesel production up north. And studies done by Hatch showed that producing electricity using a hydrokinetic system can be competitive with wind and solar, because cost of developing those type of projects are pretty expensive up north as well. So in our current status with our supply chain and the cost of our system, which have been built to be very robust, because up north you don't want to go and do maintenance too often, we can compete and we displace diesel and reduce the cost of production. When you come down south, where you're competing with very low cost of, in Quebec, dams, which are probably 4-6 cents per kilowatt hour, then you have to look at larger scale. So project we're developing in the St. Lawrence River near l'Île Sainte-Hélène will not be economically very viable on a small scale. You have to increase, so it's a demonstration project with the hope of scaling up and having dozens of systems being deployed in the St. Lawrence River. We have a similar project we're doing in the Mississippi River in a partnership with Shell. So it all starts with a demonstration project to see how technologically it's viable. But after that, if you want to be financially viable, you need to have large-scale projects.
Any more questions, even online? So, thank you again. To summarize a bit our conversation, so ORPC is a company that's 20 years old. It started with 3 founders who wanted to find a way to harness currents in the far ocean with the Gulf Stream. Proved to be a bit too powerful, so they resorted to come closer to shore and in rivers. And your solution is enabling an alternative to diesel generators, where some communities are sometimes only served by just one plane, and old planes at that. The work, and you mentioned it several times, it always starts by understanding the need, and it can be different for all communities. Sometimes they want more reliability in their grid. They want to increase their economic output, or just to be sovereign energetically. I really like the story that you said about Alexandre as a child splashing and doing the RivGen generator in the bath. And I think this can be explained because, yeah, the communities are involved from the get-go in the project, and even sometimes in the design of the modules. You also rely heavily on the indigenous knowledge. You could put sensors year-round to start, but these people who've been living there for generations know the flow and know their backyard much better than us. I really liked the fact that you give trainings. You can adapt to the communities and give them a proper training, especially so they can repair by themselves and manage their local grid and the devices. You mentioned Catalyst 2020 that helps train further these youngs. Also, not as pleasant image, but that you said that you can actually smell and hear the diesel generators all day long when they're on. And that the RivGen especially is, I mean, it is a huge propeller in the river, but to some extent it's not so invasive. You can see it, but it doesn't disturb the wildlife too much. Then your next challenges, custom-made electric boards, and just to get the technology known by the greater numbers. You've been approached by 5 communities, and I can only dream of everyone being energy sovereign in the near future. So before giving you the mic to close the podcast, I would like to thank you for coming, for your time, for explaining your project and ORPC. Thank you for space, for having us. And so 2 small plugs from Voltage's side. We are hiring 250 PhDs in September to work on different projects. So the impact projects have been out now since last week. $4 million per project, a bit more than 10. So we're waiting 250 PhDs. So if you're interested in working in renewables or the energy transition, hit us up. And then also we're organizing a conference in July on olefin materials, so LFP mainly, for rechargeable batteries. So this will be 6th to 8th of July. Thank you, everyone, and I'll let you say the last word and close.
Thank you for having us and for allowing to talk about the ORPC and the project we make and we're excited about.
Yeah, thanks. And I want to take the opportunity to thank Volt-Age as well and all the work you're doing. Certainly something that we've realized is there's a lot of different projects being done, all around the world. So we've talked about Alaska, Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, but there's also projects in Africa, in Greenland, in Australia, and South America, and to have the ability to develop living labs is great, and that's one of the mandate and mission for Volt-Age to really allow sharing of knowledge and study how, because it seems easy, right? I'm a mechanical engineer, so for me it's just electricity. As long as the red wire goes with the red wires, everything should work. And so you have a hydraulic system, you have a battery, you just connect everything together and have a computer and things should work. Turns out it's a bit more complex than that, and that makes Lucile very happy. And we need to study that. We need to better understand what are the communication challenges and everything. And thanks to those living labs, we're making progress at a faster rate. And also allowing through the conferences and sharing that knowledge, understand, okay, this project, what went wrong, what went well, and then can we learn from that and extrapolate to this project and start sharing that knowledge. So instead of having people working in silos in their own little projects, we're all an entire community with the same objective, the same goal. As you say, we want everyone to displace diesel, to have energy sovereignty, to have economic growth, to respond to those community demand. And it's only by sharing all that knowledge that we'll be able to achieve that vision. So thank you to Volt-Age for putting this and giving us also the ability to share our experience and share what we've done so far and with everyone. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our speakers and to our host. We're going to go ahead, close up the live stream, but we'll keep the Zoom open for those of you who are joining us there online, and for those of you in the space, thank you for your participation. We hope to see you back here for the second podcast recording of the day. We'll see you back here at 3:30. But that's all from us, and we hope you have a great day.